She decides all the applause three times.
You guys, 2 years ago, I made these wedding dresses as a first time bridal designer, and it was for a bridal exhibition. And looking back now, there were so many mistakes with the dresses. The ball dresses were lifting at weird angles, they were not touching the floor, the petticoat was looking weird. And I mean, at the time, I felt it was the most beautiful thing I had ever made. I didn't have so much information at my disposal. I'm just creating this video so that beginners would avoid making the same mistakes I made at that time. So you're welcome back to my channel, and I hope you enjoy this video. The next part of our video involves cutting the ball skirt, and we'll be drafting out the way we are going to cut it on paper first so that we won't make any mistake while we are drafting on the fabric. My bride is a minimalist bride and she doesn't want a ball skirt that is too big. So this is the reference ball skirt that we are going to be using to cut her own ball skirt. So this is how the front of the skirt looks. This is how the back looks. We can see that the train is quite short, and also the skirt is not too big or too puffy. Before we start, we need to establish some of her measurements. Her waist measurement is 30 inches. Her length from the waist to the floor is 40 inches. Since she doesn't want a skirt that is too big, the type of flared skirt we'll be using for her is a 360-degree flared skirt, and we will be doing 2 panels. Now 2 panels being that there's going to be 1 panel in front, which is a 180-degree flared skirt. 360 divided by 2 is 180, so 180-degree flared skirt in front, and then at the back we also have a 180-degree flared skirt. Now it is important to note that this dress is going to have a train. This ball skirt is going to have a train. That is why the back looks longer compared to the front. Since she doesn't want it to be too full, we'll be making use of a 6-ring petticoat under her dress. The skirt is going to have pleats. I hope you understand. So this is just to give a little fullness to the skirt. I need to give a heads up that this part involves a lot of calculations, and if you miss anything at this point, then there will be some errors while you are cutting on the fabric. Now for the skirt length, we have said that her waist to floor measurement is 40 inches, but we can't make use of this 40 inches directly because I mean she's going to be wearing heels, she's going to be using a petticoat, and then we are going to be taking a few allowances for joining to the upper parts, and then also we're going to be using lining to turn the fabric of the ball skirt. So all this is going to take some inches off the length, so we need to account for all these inches by adding it to what we are going to cut eventually. The ball skirt length is going to be the addition of her waist to floor measurements plus she's going to be wearing heels, so we need to account for the height of the heels. Then usually in ball skirts, when you use a petticoat under, it tends to lift the skirt, and I mean if you don't give enough allowance for the petticoat to lift the skirt, there's a tendency that it will lift the skirt off the floor, and then you'll be seeing space between the end of the skirt and the floor, which is very inappropriate. You want to give the skirt a few inches so that the petticoat will lift the skirt a little, and then there'll still be a bit of the fabric just dripping or dropping onto the floor. Now you don't want to do it so much such that the excess fabric on the floor will be too much, and you also don't want to give too little such that the petticoat will lift the skirt off the floor. So I'm going to be using 4 inches. So this 4 inches, like I mentioned, is accounting for the part of the skirt that will drop onto the floor, and is also accounting for the lift of the petticoat. And then I'll be adding 1 inch for the joining of the main fabric of the skirt to the lining, as well as the joining of the whole skirt to the bodice of the dress. So her waist to floor measurement is 40 inches. The height of her heels is 3 inches, and then we're adding the 4 inches for the petticoat and the dropping of the skirt, as well as 1 inch for the joining. So in total we have a skirt length of 48 inches. So that means that the length in front is going to be 48 inches. I hope you understand. Now for the back, the train is not so long. See, the train accounts for this point to this point, so we don't want to go overboard. So I'll just be adding about 30 inches to the length we calculated for the front. So the train length is going to be 48 inches, which is the skirt length in front, plus 30 inches, and that will give us 78 inches, which we're going to round up to 80 inches. So this length to this point is 80 inches. In order to get the side length, because this here is the center front, this here is the center back, so we need to get the side length, which is here, here, and here. So we have to find a number that is in between 48 and 80. In order to get that side, what we are going to do is take our calculator and add the front length to the back length. So that's 48 plus 80. We have 120, and then divide by 2. So that gives us 64. It means from this side to this side is going to be 64. From this side to this side is going to be 64. From this side to this side 64, and then from this side to this side is 64. It gradually increases from the front 48 inches to the side 64 inches, and then to the back 80 inches. So that gives us that cascade that wedding dresses are supposed to have, as opposed to using the same length that you used in front at the sides. I did something like that last year, no sorry, 2 years ago. Luckily for me, it was not a customer's coat, it was for a bridal exhibition, and this was my first time of making a ball skirt. So I mean, all these extra inches I added here to make up for the petticoat lift and all that, I did not add it, and then I made the side length the same as the front length. I used an 8-ring petticoat. By the time I put it under the dress, the petticoat lifted the skirt so much that you could literally see the model's legs. You could see it under the petticoat, like the way the skirt just lifted, and everything was just looking so weird. I mean, at that point I thought, oh, it was the best dress I ever made, but then with more experience and trying to improve my craft, I realized that what I did was very wrong. So all this information I'm giving you essentially is very, very important, and it is trade secrets. Like, I'm telling you all this for free, so you don't make the same mistake. If the video is helpful up to this point, you can just share, subscribe, leave a comment, just to encourage me to create more videos. Don't make the same mistakes I made. This is quite important, and it's advisable you follow the steps as I am explaining. So if there's any point that you don't understand, I mean, you can leave your questions in the comment section, and then you can also go to the beginning of this video and then rewatch it just so you can understand. So I mean, if after all that you still don't understand, just leave a comment and then I would get to it. In summary of everything we've talked about so far, we've gotten the final skirt length in front, which is 48, we've gotten the train length, which is 80, and then we've also gotten the side length measurement, which is 64, just so that the skirt can cascade and increase gradually towards the back. The next thing we'll be trying to get is our radius, because we want to know how much we are working with at the waist. Now remember that I said that the waist is going to be pleated, so we have to give allowance for the pleat. So what I'm just going to do is that I'm going to take our waist measurement, which is 30 inches, and then multiply it by 2. If it's a very big ball skirt, you can choose to multiply by 2.5 or by 3 inches, and that will give you more fabric to work with at the waist, and then you have many more pleats. But since we are working with a dress that we don't want the skirt to be too big, we don't want something too extravagant, we'll just be multiplying the waist by 2. So in total we are working with a waist circumference of 60 inches. Now going to math, we know that the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. So the waist circumference here we're using is 60. So 60 is equal to 2 pi r. And if you divide both sides by 2, you get 30 is equal to pi r. You know pi is 3.14 for math. So 30 is equal to 3.14 times r. Therefore, r is equal to 30 over 3.14. And that will give you about 10 inches. Just approximately 10 inches. So the radius we are going to be using is 10 inches. I hope you understand. So we know that our radius is 10 inches, our front length is 48 inches, side length is 64 inches, and back length or train length is 80 inches. So putting all this together, we're going to now calculate the fabric usage. That is, how much fabric are we actually going to need for this skirt. So we'll start from the front. You know the radius of a circle starts from the center towards the periphery, so that's r. We know this is 10. This from here to here too is 10. From here to here is also 10. So if from here to here is 10, we know that our front length here is 48. Our side length for the front is 64. So what we essentially have is from this point here to this point here is 10 plus 48, which is 58. From this point to this point is 10 plus 64, which is 74. So that's what we have for the front. So we know that the length from this point to this point, this is center front by the way, is 58, and then from this center to this center, which is the side front, is 74. If from here to here is 74, then from here to here is also 74, because this is the side front. You know, from here to here is 58, and then from here to here is going to be 74 times 2, which is 148. In order to calculate fabric usage, if you're using a by 60 fabric, then this front is already covered. So we just do 148 divided by 36, which is 1 yard. So 148 divided by 36 is about 4.1 yards. This is just a little interruption in the video because I realized when I was editing that I did not properly explain how to calculate the yardage required in cutting the front part of the ball skirt. From our previous calculations, we know that the center front length is 58 inches after we added the radius of the waist and the desired length for the front part of the skirt. And then for the side length, when we added both sides together, we got 148 inches. In making this ball skirt, I will be making use of a 120 inch fabric because it is very convenient. But if you were going to make use of a 60 inch fabric, then either way, cutting the front part of the skirt is super easy because the front length of the skirt falls under 60 inches. What we have here is 58 inches, and 58 is less than 60, so you can use conveniently a by 60 inch fabric. That means that in cutting the front part of the skirt, you will be cutting this 58 inches along the 60 inch length of the skirt, and then this side length, which you have 148 inches, you'll be cutting it along the yardage of the fabric. I hope you understand. But let's say we have our fabric here like this. From this point to this point is the 60-inch length, and then from here to here is the yardage. So we'll be cutting the side length, this 148 inches, along the yardage, and we'll be cutting this 58 inches along the 60-inch length of the fabric. In order to know the number of yards you would need for this fabric in cutting this front length, we're going to be dividing the 148 inches by 36. This is because we all know that 1 yard is equal to 36 inches. So if you divide this 148 by 36 inches, we'll know the number of yards of the fabric that we would need in making this front part of the ball skirt. So 148 divided by 36 is equal to 4.17 yards. That means that we'll be using 4.17 yards to cut the front part of the ball skirt. The way you cut the fabric is, let's say this is fold, this is on fold. So we have the 60-inch fabric here, and then you fold this part obviously, and then this part will be, this part of the fabric will be open. So this part here along the length of the fabric will be 74, and then you will just find a way to make that curve connect the 74. You just make that connect just like that. So I mean, cutting the front is no issue at all. The real test of knowing how to cut this will be in cutting the back. So we'll be going to that right now. So for cutting the back, we already know that this is the back. We already know from the center, we know that the radius is 10. So from here to here is 10, from here to here is 10, and then from here to here is 80, meaning that, permit me to draw a smaller one just to conserve space, meaning that from here to this point is 90, that's 80 plus 10. Remember that the front and the back have the same side length, so from this point to this point is 64, from this point to this point is 64. So from the center to the extreme end here is 74, and the center to the extreme end here is 74. So what we have is essentially 90, and from here to here being 148 again. For the front two is 148, for the back is 148. That way both of them join perfectly, and you don't have, oh, one edge of the back is longer than, no, there's nothing like that. So we have 148 for the side in front, and then 148 for the sides at the back. I'm using a by 120 inch fabric. This side is on fold. And the way 120 inch fabrics come, they come like this. So the top edge of your fabric when you buy it is the part that is folded, and then it is measured, the coat is measured this way. So when they measure the yardage of your coat, they are measuring along that folded place. So in the 120 inch fabric, from here to here is 60 inches, so that when they open up this folded part, you have 120 inches in total. This folded side is the yardage. So you're going to open up the fabric, and then when you open it up, what you will have is something like this. And then this side, I mean this, let's say this is the fold, this is where the fold was before. So you have this entire length being 120 inches, sorry, being 120 inches, and like this is your yardage. So if like this is your yardage, I mean you have more fabric to work with that way. The way this is, the longer side of your back is 148 and the shorter side of your back is 90 inches. So the best way to just cut it is to make sure that your 90 inches is on this 120 inch length, and then your 148 inches is along your yardage. I'm going to come again. This is your by 120 inch fabric, right? For those that have seen 120 inch fabric, this is where the fabric is folded. So when they are going to measure it for you, they measure along that fold. So that fold is your yardage. That direction of fold is your yardage. Okay, let me get the paper to explain. So let's say this is your 120 inch fabric, right? This is the fold. When they want to sell it to you, it is sold in, the fabric is sold in a roll like this. So when they want to sell it to you, they will unfold it and then measure. They will measure like this for you along that fold. So that fold direction is your yardage. So we know that this here is 60 inches, the length of your fabric. So when you open it up, you have another 60 inches, which makes it 120 inch. 60 plus 60, 120. So it is sold like this by yard. When you are cutting this type of skirt now on your 120 inch fabric, you open up the fabric. I mean this space, remember that this space is your fold, and you know that the longer part of your back here is that side length because of the 148. So that side length, you will cut it along your yardage. Let's assume we have 5 yards of the fabric, and remember that I said the fold is the yardage. 5 times 36 is 180 inch. You have 5 yards of fabric here, so from here to here is 180 inches, and then you have your by 120 length fabric. So 60 plus 60, 120. The direction in which you're going to cut this fabric is that your 148 inches, which is your side length added together, is going to be along this 180 inch line, and then your 90 inches, which is the length of the train, is going to be along this 60 inch line. So what you have is, you just cut your fabric like this. So from here to here is 90 inches, and then from here to here is your 148 inches. Please, if you don't understand, just go back and watch the video again, and if you still don't understand, just leave a comment in the comment section and I will get to you. This is your 120 inch fabric. You will open it up. Remember, this is the yardage. You then fold it into 2 like this. So you do 148 divided by 2 is 74. So you do 74 inches here, and then remember that this length is 90. So this is 90 inches here. So you just measure 74 inches like this, measure 90 inches like this, and then cut it out. So what you will have is something like this, and then when you open it up, you have your back train. For the radius, put your measuring tape here. Let's pretend that the 10 inches is 1 inch. So you just put your measuring tape, put your 10 inch like this, mark it from the very center, mark 10, mark 10, mark 10, like that, and then you will cut this out. So that is your back train. So for the front, remember I said from here to here will be 58 in total, like I wrote here, and then from here to here will be the 148. So you just do the same thing, fold this into 2, that means you're dividing the 148 into 2, so this space will be 74, and then from here to here will be the 58. So you just draw, you would the measurements, you would draw the radius like that. So from this center down here is 58, from this center up here is 74, and then you cut it out. And then also you will cut out the radius. Remember, we are pretending our radius is 1 inch, even though it is, according to this measurement, is 10 inches. So you just mark 1 inch, mark 1 inch, mark 1 inch, mark 1 inch, and then you cut out your radius the same way. So you have your front piece and your back piece. Obviously this is just an illustration, but your side lengths would meet when you're cutting on the actual fabric, because this piece is 74, this piece is 74, so it's going to be equal. So this is what you have as your 360-degree ball skirt with a train. So I hope you understand. Please, if you don't understand, like I said, rewatch the video. If you still don't understand, leave a comment in the comment section and I would attend to it once I see it. This is the final look of the wedding dress once I was done sewing it. Initially I planned to use a 6-ring petticoat, but it was not available in the market, so I ended up using a 7-ring petticoat, and that is why the wedding dress actually looks like it is a bit above the floor. So my advice now is that try to get your petticoat ready before you cut, so that you can add enough allowance. So the larger the petticoat you're using, the more the allowance you should add for the lift of the petticoat. But other than that, it didn't look so bad. So I was quite pleased with the outcome. If this video was useful, please share, like, subscribe, leave a comment, all the extra stuff, and just stay tuned to my channel for more videos. Thank you for watching. Bye.